Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock. It's time for another video. And today I'm going to be talking to you about how to release your own magic product with a production company. That's right, how to release your own magic product with a production company. Now, I've talked about creativity before, and I've talked about how to create a magic trick. I've talked about my process of creating magic. And I've talked a little bit about building a brand around yourself and making sure that, you're a marketable asset to production companies. I've talked about a lot of that stuff. But today, I'm going to talk specifically about once you have that idea and you've established that brand around yourself, how are you going to get a production company to say yes? And this has been a requested video a few times now. People have requested this, but it's important that you understand. And I have really made notes on this. I think how many points do we have here? I think we've got a lot. 16 points, I think it is. 17 points, something like that. It's a lot of points. But again, I want you to understand this is specifically, I want to assume that you've got a good idea, that it's been worked in, that you've ironed out all of the kinks, and you've got this thing that you think is a marketable product. I also am going to assume that you have a brand around you, because as I've talked about on this channel before, one thing that you need as a creator is you need a brand. Because why are people going to buy your tricks? Why are production companies going to want to work with you if nobody knows who you are? You can't be the best kept secret in magic. If you want to be a producer, if you want to be a creator, if you want to bring out tricks that everybody buys, everyone needs to know who you are. It's simple, basic marketing 101, and it's the same with any business. You're going to have YouTube channels out there that are going to say, oh, you should never hype products. Oh, you shouldn't do any hype. I disagree. That's marketing. At the end of the day, if you're a magician, you want a gig, you market yourself to get the gig. If you're a creator and you want to release product, you market those tricks so that more people buy the product, right? So I'm going to assume that you've got a brand around yourself, you've got a following of people, you've got active social media that people can follow you on, they connect with you. I'm going to assume that the trick is good. I'm not even going to talk about the actual trick and what it is. This is the process you go through to pitch it to a production company. And it's will work. If you follow these points, it's going to work. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about a 17-point plan on how to release a magic product. Okay, point number one, and sorry to reiterate this as I've just spoken about it, but it is the first point, so I'm just going to quickly say it again. Make sure the trick is worked in and thought through. And what I mean by that is make sure that you can perform it and perform it well. Make sure you understand that trick inside out, back to front and upside down. Because in the process of actually going and pitching yourself to production companies, in the process of actually getting that trick to market, there are lots of times you're going to have to talk about that trick very confidently, very succinctly, and you're going to have to know that trick inside out and back to front. You don't want to have someone ask you a question and you go, oh, I'm not really too sure, I hadn't thought about that. You don't want to get to the point where you're filming the tutorial and you don't really know what to say because you haven't thought about it that much. You don't want to be in a situation where you can't get live performance footage. You need to get live performance footage. You need to be able to perform this stuff live in the real world because that's part of the process of making a successful product. So make sure it's worked in. Make sure it's thought through. Make sure you know that trick inside out, back to front and upside down. Okay, point number two. You want to put yourself together a video submission. So you want to put yourself together a video submission that you can send to production companies. And you want to make it sub 2.5 minutes. You want to make it less than 2.5 minutes. I've spoken to lots of production companies in the past. I've spoken to lots of companies that get submissions all of the time. And one thing that they always say to me is when there's a video that comes in that's 20 minutes long, they're going to switch off. They've normally got, Penguin Magic, for example, get dozens and dozens of submissions every single day. They're going to skim through that. If you're sending them a 10, 15-minute video, they're going to skim through it. You want to you want to put together a simple video submission that's 2.5 minutes at the absolute most. Don't worry about live performances at this point. Don't worry about making a trailer. Don't send them a video that's like reaction shots that you've got from people reacting to the trick that you're actually trying to pitch them on. Don't do any of that. Make it very clear as to what the trick is. So let's say I was pitching my trick Magic Button, for example, and I was sending a submission video out to that. I'd be like, hey, my name's Craig Petty, and I just want to tell you very quickly today about a product that I think could be very, very successful. It's called Magic Button. Now, what Magic Button is, in essence, is it's an ambitious card where the card keeps coming to the top of the deck over and over again, but the hook is that you put a card down on the table at the very beginning with a big red button on it, and every time that the spectator presses the button, that's when the sign card comes to the top of the deck. But as a kicker finish, when you do it for like the fourth or the fifth time, they turn over the card on the table that they've had the entire time, and that's now their signed card, and you can give it away and let them keep it. That's what Magic Button is. Now, it's very easy to do. It doesn't take up that much skill. I've got a whole bunch of other routines with it as well. This is what the Magic Button card looks like, and I'd happily like to talk to you about a little bit more about this and how it works and so on and so forth. You know, something like that. So they get a very clear understanding of how this trick works. This is not the time to do like a 20-minute video with zooms in on, okay, now this is the gaff here, and when I flick this is what happens. If you want to briefly show the gaff, that's fine. If you want to briefly go through what it does, that's fine. But I mean, this is the point where you're just trying to grab their interest. You're submitting something. This is the moment where you go, okay, this is what it does. This is what it is. So you want to put together that video submission, keep it less than 2 minutes. And the goal is, by the end of that video, by the end of watching that video, they understand exactly what that trick is, and try to make it as simple as possible. You know, it was Guy Vernon that says confusion isn't magic. You should be able to describe a great trick in one sentence. Well, it's the same with video submissions. Try to describe it in one sentence. So yeah, put together your video submission. Okay, point number 3, I've put down here, put together a covering letter focusing on the selling points of the trick. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical letter, but you don't just want to send a video in. Now, different production companies have different ways of submitting tricks. It might be a form that you fill in. It might be an email address that you email into. But in all cases, they're going to have the ability for you to be able to type something as well as sending the video. So I'm going to call that a covering letter. It could be an email. It could be a contact submission form. It's up to you. But what you want to do is you want to put on there the selling points of the trick. So it could be, hey, Penguin Magic, my name's Craig Petty, and I want to submit a trick for you. It's called the Magic Button, and I think this could be a really big seller. I've included a video where I'm talking about what the trick is and showing you what it's going to look like. But in essence, this trick is very easy to do. There's multiple routines that you can do with it. It resets instantly. It's perfect for walk around, and it's very different to anything else that's been out there before. I think that a lot of people are going to like it. You know, something like that. So focus on the selling points. What you want to do is you want to, this is the sizzle, right? This is the sizzle. This is the bit that's going to grab their attention. Because I know that there's production companies that when they've read the email, they've just gone bin without looking at the video. So the kind of covering email needs to do a few things. First of all, you want to keep it nice and simple. You know, my mentor in sales that taught me how to do sales, he used to say, kiss it, don't kill it. In other words, keep it short and simple, don't keep it long and lethal. You know, in sales, you can kill a sale by saying too much stuff, by just going on and on and on and on and on. You want to keep it nice, and that's what you're doing here. You're selling this product to a production company. So keep the email nice and simple, focus on the salient points, and don't come across as an ego warrior. Don't come across in the video or in the covering email. Don't come across as egotistical, like, hey, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and this is going to be the biggest thing in the world. Be humble. Even if you think it's going to be the biggest thing in the world, be humble. Very important. So you've put together that video submission, and you've put together your covering email, and they're all designed to sell you and sell the product. And when I talk about selling you, like I said, I'm assuming that you've built up a brand at this point. So you can say, hey, if this comes to market, this will be my first product that comes out, but I do have a big following within the magic community. I've done this and this and this and this and this. I've got this following on social media. And I would, I think that my followers would absolutely love this product, or something like that. But basically the whole idea is that you're selling yourself and who you are and what you do. Point number 4, have a prototype. Now, this is kind of always the sticky point, isn't it? But you want to, wherever possible, have a prototype. If you just go to a production company and say, yeah, so basically this is the thing, this is what it is, and this is what it does. You'll have to make it up for me, obviously, but trust me, it's going to be amazing. You're going to have less chance of people saying yes than if you go to that company with the actual prototype so they can see it. So when I went to Murphy's with Evoke, for example, I had Evoke done. The artwork had been made for me by Phil Smith. I had all of the files, and I was able to say to them, this is Evoke, this is what it does, these are all the features. And I sent them the artwork so they could see exactly what it is that they were getting. Keymaster, back in the day when I first bought out Keymaster, I went and sourced a place that could do the keys before I spoke to Jim Trainer at World Magic Shop. I actually had a prototype set that they could look at and that they could play with, and that was very, very important. My latest trick that's come out is Level Up, and when I did Level Up, I didn't just go to Penguin and say, wouldn't it be cool to do a coins routine with Nintendo Switch cartridges? What I did is I paid a company to 3D print. I actually paid Steve Rowe. I paid a company, Steve Rowe, to 3D print these cartridges, and I sent them the 3D printed prototypes, which they then used and turned into an injection mold. So, have a prototype. You're more likely for a company to say yes to you if you can show them the prototype. If you're just going to them and saying, well, this needs to be built, I've not built it, but I think it could be built relatively easily. Well, they're doing all of the work now. They can only take on so many submissions any given week or any given day. You've made it a lot harder for them to say yes to you, because you're coming to them with nothing more than an idea. It's better to have a prototype, even if it takes longer to get to that point where you're submitting that product to a company. Have that prototype if you can. Okay, point number 5. So you've got your prototype, you've got your video, and you've got your covering email. Now, this is the point where you submit the idea. And people turn around to me and they say, well, who should I put it in through? Should I put it in through Penguin? Should I put it in through the 1914? Should I put it in through, Murphy's? Who should I put it in through? And the answer is, I would just send it to everyone. If it's your first product, I would just send it to everyone and everyone. Because you never know who's going to say yes and who's going to say no. It just might not, the trick that you think is the best trick in the world, it might not be something that Penguin like. It just might not be something that Penguin likes, but somebody else might love it. Snaps by David Jonathan is a perfect example. One of the best tricks of all time. I think it's like the 16th best-selling trick of all time on Penguin Magic. Snaps is brilliant. And David Jonathan went to 2 or 3 production companies, 2 or 3 places to have it produced, and they all said no, and then Penguin said yes. But it's an amazing trick. It's a brilliant trick. Why would anyone say no? I don't know. Maybe they didn't see the vision that David Jonathan had. But you never know who's going to say yes and who's going to say no. It's a sales thing. You throw as much crap against the wall, some of it's going to stick. If you just send that submission to one company and they say no, well, that's it. I mean, then you could go to another company, I suppose, and another company. But if you send it to all the different companies at once, worst case scenario, everyone says no. We'll talk about what happens if they do that in a minute. Best case scenario, you have 2 or 3 companies that say yes. and then you can choose which one. In fact, let's talk about that on the next point. Point number 6 is review your offers and go for the one that you think is best. Now, what I mean by that is there's a lot of factors to take into consideration when you are accepting an offer. So obviously the big consideration is remuneration. You know, obviously how much you're going to get paid. Some production companies will do it as a buyout, which means that they will pay you a lump sum and probably give you product. You know, they'll say, hey, we're going to pay you this amount and we're going to give you 50 units when it's produced. And but then we own the rights to it, and it doesn't matter how many we sell, you're not getting any more money. Which is fine. You know, I've done buyouts many times. Some companies will work on a royalty scheme when they say, right, okay, well, we're not going to pay you anything up front, but we're going to pay you for each individual unit that sells. Now, that's another thing that you might want to say yes to, because obviously you're thinking, well, if it's really successful, lots of people are going to buy it, I'm going to make more money that way. So remuneration, how much you're going to get paid is a really big thing to consider, but it's not the only thing to consider. There's other things to consider as well. So, for example, if you've got an offer from a very small production company that no one's ever heard of before, and they're giving you X amount, but you've also got an offer from Murphy's Magic, and they're offering you X amount, but it's less. Well, you might want to take the Murphy's Magic one, because it depends on how you're viewing this. Are you wanting to become a creator, like ongoing? Or you want to create magic and keep creating magic, like David Jonathan, for example, like Nicholas Mavresis? Are you going to be somebody who's going to be constantly creating magic? Because if you are, you know, having your name associated with like Murphy's Magic, for example, is not a bad thing. And the other thing is Murphy's and Penguin and Alakazam and Illusionist and those bigger companies and Vanishing Ink, they have more marketing dollars. They are going to be able to expose you to a bigger audience because more people are going to be able to see your trick than if you're doing it with XYZ company that doesn't have many people that follow their socials, right? So take into consideration you know, the kudos that comes with working some particular companies, because you might want to take a step back and say, well, I'm going to work with this company because they've got a bigger reach. I'm not going to get paid as much, but by working with this company, I think it's going to bring my brand identity, it's going to bring my stock within this industry up much higher because they're a more desirable company to work with. It might be that you just like a particular company better. So it might be, well, you've got this mentalism trick, and one of the companies that have said yes to you is 1914. And you kind of go, well, I don't want to work with any other companies. I'm going to work with 1914. Doesn't matter what their deal is, I'm going to work with 1914 because they're a great production company when it comes to mentalism. I'm a serious mentalist. I'd want to be associated with their brand. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. So when you get the offers, you want to kind of just, what I would do is I'd take multiple pieces of paper and write down the pros and cons of each company that have said yes to you, and then go with the one that works out best. Now, it might just be that one company says yes to you, in which case you don't really have an option. If you want to bring it out through a production company, that's the one you want to go for. However, what do you say if everybody says no? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about in point 7. Okay, point 7 is what happens if you get no offers, if everybody sends you a very polite thanks but no thanks email. Well, there's a few things. There's 4 options that I've put down here. The first option is self-produce the item. If everyone said no to you, but you believe that trick could sell, you believe that this is a good effect, you believe that this is something that the community would want, you can self-produce it. Now, the problem with that is you're going to have expenses. That the advantage of working with a production company is they take on all of those expenses, and that's obviously well and good. With this, you've got more risk, but you've got more reward. You're going to have to, you know, if you've got to make a gizmo, well, you've got to make 1,000 gizmos. You've got to organize the packaging, the tutorial yourself. You're going to have to organize a trailer. You know, if you're going to be putting it in through Murphy's, you're going to have to be dealing with people like Kathy and Murphy's to see if Murphy's will take it, because there's a difference between Murphy's producing it in-house as part of their studio, Murphy's Studio. Murphy's Studio is like their creative team. It's where they produce their own in-house items, but you've also got Murphy's as a wholesaler. And if you've produced a trick yourself, they will buy copies off you to sell to magic shops around the world. So you're going to have to get, there's a lot more work to it, and it can become quite costly. I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and a new trick had come out, and it needed a paper clip or a couple of paper clips to do one of the handlings in the project. And they were saying to me, oh, why do you think they didn't include a paperclip? If they think that that handling is worth doing, why didn't they include the 3 paperclips? That's it, it was 3 paperclips. And I said to them, I said, well, think about this for a minute. To you, it's like 3 paperclips. It costs nothing, right? But if they're producing 1,000 units, that's 3,000 paperclips that they've got to buy, which is a much bigger expense. Then they've got to factor in the time of taking those 3,000 paperclips out and putting them in the box along with everything else. There's a lot of stuff that happens, right? It's going to add more cost on because you've spent a lot more money. Whilst if people like that handling, they've probably got 3 paperclips lying around the house. Anything that you add into that product when you're self-producing it is going to add cost on, which is going to be incurred by you before you even see any money back. And then there's the risk of whether it'll sell or not. So, but the first option is self-production. The second option is shelve it temporarily, shelve it for the time being. In other words, you go, right, okay, no one said yes. I'm just going to put a pin in it. I'm going to put it over there. It's not going to be a no for now, but I'm just going to shelve it and not work on it for a while. Yeah, and maybe over time you can think of a way to improve it or make it better to the point that a production company does want to take it on. The third option is continue working on it. So in other words, everyone said no, and you're like, right, okay, I'm going to carry on working on it. I'm going to fix anything that people could have thought about it that's negative. And by the way, on that point, I've put in brackets afterwards, get feedback. So one of the things you want to do is if you've been knocked back by a production company, you want to ask that company for feedback. Why is it they've said no? What specifically was the reason that they said no? Because then that'll give you something to work on. If you're going to continue working on it, knowing why that company said no allows you to know what to work on it. Oh, we don't like it because of this. Right, I'm going to fix this. Excuse me. Getting that feedback is very, very important. And if they don't volunteer the feedback for you, ring them or email them and say, hey, you said no, that's absolutely fine. Can I get some feedback? Why was it a no? I'd like to carry on working on this, and I'd love to know where you think this falls short of being produced by yourselves. So get that feedback and then continue working on it. And the last point is focus on something else. So, you know, the fact is, it's very difficult as a creator to let go of any of your ideas because they're your babies, right? You came up with the concept, you've developed it, you've created a prototype, you've got it to a point where you feel like it's ready. It's very difficult to let it go. But sometimes you do have to do that. Sometimes you have to let it go. I've created tricks in the past that I've thought are absolutely amazing, and unfortunately, it's not panned out for whatever reason. I've hit a hole in the wall. There's a problem. I found something that's too similar, so that it's not. Whatever the reason, sometimes you just have to let these ideas go. And when you do, it's difficult because you've spent weeks and months and maybe even years developing this concept, and it's like, oh, what's the point? But you have to keep moving forward, because if you're not moving forward, you're falling backwards. And if you're falling backwards, you're going in the wrong direction. But those are the 4 options. Self-produce it. There's a risk there, but there's greater rewards if it works out. Shelve it. Put a pin on it. Go back to it a year or 2 later on. Continue working on it, but make sure you get that feedback first. Or focus on something else and just let it go. Those are your 4 options. Okay, so point number 8. I'm going to go so we've now pitched it to the client, to the production company. We've had a yes. We've decided which company to go for. The next point is to understand timescales. Different production companies have different timescales. For example, I'm going over to America in a bit to film a product for Murphy's. I started working with Murphy's, about 2.5 years ago? And this was one of the very first, this was the first product that I went to them at. I went to them at 3 or 4 products. This was in that batch. And we've now, 2.5 years later, got to the point where now we're ready to film it. 2.5 years later. There's something that I've just had, literally before I sat down to do this video, I've just had a text off Lloyd Barnes. And he's just said that the prototype is finished, something I've been working on for about 4 years. Like, I gave them an initial prototype, but they've improved it and changed it and so on and so forth. Which can happen over time. Just because you've created a prototype, they'll probably want to improve it. But timescales, especially when working, Murphy's is a perfect example because they have so much product that's coming out all the time. Penguin are another example. They've got so much product that's coming out all the time. The timescales can be years sometimes, and I think that's one of the biggest frustrations new creators have. Speaking to new creators, one of the things that they get really frustrated with, and one of the things that a lot of people within Magic that aren't creators don't understand, is just how long it takes to get things to market. You might think, well, this is a really easy concept. No, it's really not. I'm working with Alakazam on something at the moment, and it is literally, I've handed to them everything that they need to put this product together. Literally, there's nothing that they need to do. And it's still been like 6 months because there's so much. And you have to understand that when you're working with an Alakazam, when you're working with a Penguin or whoever it may be, you're not the only artist they're working on. You're not the only priority. And so it's really important to understand timescales. It's really important to understand how long it takes to bring stuff to market because you want to manage your expectations. Don't think, okay, this is going to come out in a month, because in a year's time, you're going to be very, very annoyed. So ask that question. When you've said yes, and you've taken the offer and you're happy with the offer, say, right, what is the time scale? I know this might change and this might fluctuate, but what is the time scale in terms of how long it's going to take to get this to market, in your opinion? Okay, point number 9. So you understand the timescales, you've accepted an offer, everything's all well and good with the world. I've put down here at number 9, make sure you are a joy to work with. One of the things that any production company that will speak about me will say, I hope, is that I'm an absolute joy to work with. They want me to do something, I will do it. They want me to film extra footage, that's fine. They want me to do something behind the scenes that needs to be done for the product, absolutely cool. They want me to promote it, no problem. When I turn up to a shoot, I am completely organized. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm saying. I'm more than capable of getting live performances for everything that I do. I am a joy to work with. That is really important because it's a small industry and you can get a reputation very easily. And once you've got that reputation, it's very difficult to shake that reputation. So make sure that you're a joy, an absolute joy to work with. Okay, so point number 10 I've got down here, don't be afraid to ask for help. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, don't forget, we're at the point now where the product is being created and it's going to see the light of day. At that point, I think it's super smart to work with other people on the project. It's something that you'll see that I like to do. I get asked to go on other people's projects all the time, which I'm more than delighted to do. But also you'll notice that a lot of the time I bring people into my project that I think can add value to that particular project. So for example, if you look at Evoke, I had Pete Turner, I had Ian Rowland on there, I had Peter Nardi, 3 incredible mentalists that know more about mentalism than I will ever know. And when you're talking about a product about mentalism, that makes total sense. Excuse me. When you look at when you look at Cube 52, I had Kev G and Colin Klaus on there. Same reason. They know inside out and back to front cube magic way more than I do. Look at the Nightshade coin set. There's a reason I always ask Andy Smith to sit down with me and be a part of the project when I'm doing coin magic. It's because Andy is an incredible coin magician. So it's very, very important to go and get help. If you think that there's somebody who can add value to your project, ask them. The worst they can say is no. They're not going to be annoyed that you've asked them, and just turn around to them and say, hey, I'm a big fan of your work, and I think that this project that I've got coming out with XYZ company could really benefit from you being a part of it and maybe, putting some ideas together for me. Is that something that you would be able to do? I'd be more than happy to reciprocate in the future, because what you want to do is you want to give the end user the best possible experience of this product that you can. And the bottom line is, when you're creating magic, a lot of the time it's blink of vision. You will have a goal for for how you want this project to be. You will have a goal for how you want this product to be, and you will be laser focused on getting it to that point. But the bottom line is there's a lot of other stuff that can be included as well that you might not have even realized because you're approaching it from one direction. I'll give you a perfect example. I've got a trick coming out soon through Murphy's called the Infinity Deck. Now, the Infinity Deck is amazing, but for a variety of different reasons, I knew that the best person to be involved with the Infinity Deck was David Jonathan. And so, what did I do? I asked David Jonathan to be a part of the project, and he said yes. And he added so much value to that product. It's ridiculous, and he blew my mind with the stuff that he was suggesting. So, bottom line, not going to drone on about it anymore. It's really important that you ask for help if you think that the product needs it. Okay, point number 11, come to the shoot prepared. I've already talked about this one, but come to the shoot prepared. When I go to a shoot, I know the product inside out, back to front, and left way sideways. I will come with multiple pieces of paper. I will have made notes on every individual trick. If there's going to be 20 tricks on the project, I'm going to have made notes on every individual trick, what it's going to need, what I'm going to be talking about. And I come prepared so that when they sit me down in front of the camera, I know what I'm going to say. I know what I'm going to do. I can very confidently talk about this product without needing to worry about it. Also, when I say come prepared, that's also from a live performance point of view as well. So be prepared to go and get live performances and make sure that people like the magic. You know, one thing that you'll notice from a lot of the tricks that I bring out, when you see the live performances and you see the reactions on the trailer, people are going crazy. Why are people going crazy? Because I've worked that trick in to the point that I know what to do, I know what to say, and I know how to present the trick so that people will react the way that the production company wants them to react. There's no point going out spending 5 hours getting live performances if everyone's just gone, yeah, that's very good. You want to make sure that you understand how to present this trick to get the reactions that the production company needs. Because the bottom line is, again, it's down to marketing. The way to sell a product and the way to get more people to buy product is to show them that it works in the real world. Having those live performances are very, very important. So you need to be prepared to do the tutorial without flubbing up every couple of seconds. You need to be prepared to do the live performances. And also, you need to be prepared to do the pitch. What do I mean by pitch? Well, another word for the pitch is the promo. It's what you say. It's the voiceover that happens over the trailer. You have to be very confident at delivering a pitch in order to do it correctly. Now, if you're working with a bigger production company like Penguin or Murphy's, you can say to them, hey, I think that somebody else would do this better. So, for example, with Evoke, whenever I do a pitch, I'm very high energy. I'm very like, whoa. And I didn't think that that was the style for Evoke. So I asked Murphy's if Javier could do it, and I think he did a much better job than I could ever do. You look at, but you need to know how you want them. So Murphy's a lot of the time, they will give you a script, and they'll want you to kind of learn that script, right? And so you have to learn the script beforehand. Get to the shoot being prepared. Penguin go in a couple of different directions. Sometimes they'll want you to, they've got a teleprompter, and they'll have written a pitch or a promo and they'll want you to read it off the teleprompter. But other times they'll want you to just riff something. Like a lot of the time at Penguin, I come up with my own promos because I know what to say about the product a little bit better. But all of this is preparation. You need to be prepared. You don't want to waste the time of the production company. If they're having to take days longer to get everything that they need to produce this, that's going to add money and cost onto what it is that they're doing, because they have to pay for people's time. So the way to do it is to make sure you're coming in from a performance point of view, from a tutorial type point of view, from a promo point of view. Make sure you're coming in completely organized and you have everything ready to go. Okay, point number 12. After the shoot, ask for an updated time frame. Very, very important. You ask for an updated time frame. Because I know that you said at the very beginning, after you signed the contract, roughly what is the time scale. That will change after the shoot. they'll have probably more of an idea of what the time frame is going to be. You need to know the time frame for a few different reasons. It gives you an idea of how long it's going to take before this thing comes to market, but also it's going to help you promote it. If you know when it's coming out, you can start hyping and marketing this product before it actually hits the shelves. And all of that is very, very important. Again, I've talked about hype. I know that a lot of people don't like hype. I know a lot of people don't like marketing. I know it's a dirty term. Product shouldn't be hyped. But from my point of view, it's all marketing. It's really important to market the product, because if you don't market it, if people don't buy it, it's because they've not marketed it. It's not being marketed. So ask for that time frame so you can be ready to help with the promotion of this product. Okay, point number 13, do not hassle the production company. I have spoken to so many newer creators that are getting frustrated. It's like, oh my God, it's not come out yet. I don't know why it's not come out. And they're ringing the production company every single day or emailing them every single day. You don't want to do that. You really don't want to do that, because even if it works, even if the production company just turns around and says, right, okay, we'll elevate it up the schedule. Even if that's the case, it's going to put them off from working with you again, however successful that trick is, right? So don't hassle them. It's going to come out when it comes out. And there's a million reasons why it might not come out straight away. As I say, I've got tricks that are sitting in the Murphy's warehouse, literally ready to be sent out, and they have to work on a schedule. They can't have, there's a million different reasons why certain tricks come out at certain times. So don't hassle the producer. If you want to make a phone call every couple of months or send an email every couple of months, that's fine. But don't be calling them every single day, because it's really just going to piss them off. Point number 14, when you know that this trick is coming out and you know what the date is, help market the product. And this is one of the biggest things that you can do to make sure that you are booked again in this industry as a creator, because you're only as good as your last trick. And if you don't help market the product, then it's not going to be as successful. It's just not. I've spoken to creators in the past, and I've had messages from creators in the past where they've said, oh, I'm really unhappy with XYZ company because they filmed my trick for me and they put it out, but it didn't sell very well. And I think that's because they didn't market it very well. Well, realistically, it needs to be down to you. The production company are going to want this to be a success, but there's only so much they can do. They can tap into their audience, they can tap into their market, and they can help promote it to their wider audience. But you can do way more than they can do. So help market the product. Send review copies out, or ask different reviewers if you can send a review copy over to them, and then get those review copies sent. Contact the production company and say, right, I want a review copy to this person, this person, this person, this person, and this person. I want these tricks reviewed, if that's okay. Can you send those out tomorrow for me? Thank you very much. It might be a case of you jumping up, contacting YouTube channels and saying, hey, or podcasts and saying, hey, I'd like to jump on your podcast and talk about my new trick. It could be jumping into the Magic Cafe, jumping into Facebook groups, jumping in on social media and talking about this new trick that you've come up with. You want to help market it as much as possible. Leverage your audience, leverage your social media, and get as many people excited about this product as you can, because honestly, you are going to be able to market this better than anyone else. And the bottom line is, when you point fingers at somebody, there's three fingers pointing back at you. Don't go blaming a production company because it wasn't successful because of you, because of that production company. It's you, ultimately, at the end of the day. It's as important that you focus on the marketing as the production company that's created it focuses on the marketing as well. Okay, so I've got point number 15, be present to answer questions. One of the things that I like to do, and I think it's really important to do, is to answer any little questions. Keep an eye on social media. Keep an eye especially on the Magic Cafe, because there's probably going to be a thread that comes up about your trick, and you want to be the person that's present and answering all questions about that trick. That's really important, because nobody knows that trick better than you. And if you're not there being present, and that's something that a lot of people have said about me on the Magic Cafe. Hey, Craig always wades in here and answers any and all questions. Now, sometimes I'm busy. Sometimes I've got gigs. Sometimes I've got a life. I'm not always available. But whenever I've got a spare few minutes, I'll jump on the Magic Cafe and see if I can answer any questions that people might have about the product. Be transparent. Answer any and all questions That's very, very important. Okay, point number 16. I just mentioned this briefly, but I'm going to make it its own point. Be transparent. Now, what do I mean about be transparent? Well, you've seen that with Evoke, I literally just gave away how the trick worked. With Magic Button, I gave away how the trick worked. Level Up, gave away how the trick worked on social media. Mindblocks, gave away how the trick worked. I'm very transparent about what this trick is all about. These days, I think it's really important to be transparent. Don't be cagey. Don't be going, oh, you've got to buy it to find out the secret. Try and find out a way of talking about the product and showing people. You want to be as transparent as you possibly can. Now, I understand sometimes you can't completely give away what the trick is. You just can't. I totally get that. But there's always a way to be super transparent. And there's a way to actually present the information people request in a way that literally leaves them knowing what they're going to get if they spend their money. I think that's really important because, I saw a trick come out recently through the 1914 that I haven't reviewed yet, but I've got to. And it's a coin trick, Hot, I think it was called. And a lot of people were negative about that product on the Magic Cafe. A lot of people were negative about that product on various different review channels. And I think if the 1914 had been a little bit more open about exactly what it was that they were getting, I think that wouldn't have been the case. I think being open and being transparent is so important. If you want to be taken seriously as a creator, if you want to have a good reputation with customers, if you want to have a good reputation with producers, if you want to have your name taken seriously, I think that transparency is the key right there. Okay, the final point is point number 17, which is repeat. You've got to the point where it's sold, it's doing well, hopefully it'll continue to sell, people have liked it, repeat, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, create, release, repeat. But only, remember, if it's good and it's worked in. I've talked on the channel before about creativity boards and always working on various different tricks at the same time. If you want to be a creator, you've constantly got to be thinking of new ideas and new routines, and it's fun. Only do this if it's fun, because it's very hard work. I love creating magic, and for me, the thing that I love the most is seeing and knowing that there's people all around the world that are performing with tricks that I've created, that people that I will never meet in countries I will never go to are watching magic performed and freaking out over it because of something that I dreamed up sitting here in my office or sitting in my living room of my house. That just means the world to me, and I know that my legacy will live on as long as people continue to perform my magic. So don't be afraid to repeat, don't be afraid to come up with new ideas and new concepts, because that's always going to help with releasing more and more product. So there you go, guys. That's another video in the bag. Everything that I know about bringing a product to market. Now, I know that people want to see a video about prototyping as well, and how you actually go down the route of actually prototyping a trick. That's something that I'm going to be putting together in the next couple of weeks, but I thought this would be a very useful video for everybody. Do me a favor, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you find this useful? Are you a creator? Is this the process that you went through? Please let me know in the comments down below. You want to see more videos like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll be back again tomorrow at 6 o'clock with another Magic Live, and I'll be back at 9 o'clock with another video. And don't forget, if you haven't already done so, please join the Netrix. It's www.thenetrix.com. That's www.thenetrix.com. Go and join it and see what all the fuss is about. But I'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching. My name's Craig from Magic TV.